ज्ञान सत्य ज्ञान ज्योति अरविंद। Release the screen share. So last time we spoke about fear and ways to go beyond fear. And so obviously this time the logical topic of the talk would be faith, because fear is really an absence of faith. You cannot have fear and anxiety in one breath and in the same breath say you have faith, because fear and faith can't coexist. Hey, Dhvani, seeing you after forever. So, so the topic for today in that sense is faith. We may think we've heard about it so much and we know it all, but really, in a lot of ways, a real understanding of faith is the key to integral yoga. So let's go into it. The first screen share. So since today is Gandhi Jayanti, I thought we'd start with Gandhiji's words on faith. It is faith that steers us through stormy seas, faith that moves mountains, and faith that jumps across the ocean. Now, this is not just poetic, it is so true. If you really believe in something, if you believe, like when Sri Aurobindo was asked, is it true that anyone can walk over water? So he said, yes, provided that person down to his cellular level believes he can. So it is faith that steers us through stormy seas, faith that moves mountain, and faith that jumps across the ocean. The faith is nothing but a living, wide awake consciousness of God within. In this sense, Gandhiji is saying something very similar to Mother and Sri Aurobindo, because Mother and Sri Aurobindo categorically states that you cannot have faith with your mind. It's the nature of your mind to doubt. Faith is only found when you go into your heart, when you discover your psychic being, because it's a natural state of the psychic being to have faith. So faith is nothing but a living, wide awake consciousness of God within. He who has achieved that faith wants nothing. Bodily diseased, he is spiritually healthy. Even if he's bodily diseased, he's not bothered. He has the faith, he's spiritually healthy. Physically poor, he rolls in spiritual riches. Faith is not a delicate flower which would wither under the slightest stormy weather. For most of us, faith is this delicate flower. It's very easy for us to have faith when things are going well. The moment the boat starts rocking, we think it's natural to have fear. We forget about our faith. Faith is like the Himalayan mountains, which cannot possibly change. No storm can possibly remove the Himalayan mountain from their foundations. And I want every one of you to cultivate that faith in God and religion. Next. Mother's words. Never forget that you are not alone. And this we forget very often, because we could not for a moment be anxious or fearful without feeling alone in our struggles. So Mother is saying, never forget that you're not alone. The divine is with you, helping and guiding you. He is the companion who never fails, the friend whose love comforts and strengthens. Have faith and He will do everything for you. Next, Mother's words. The perception of the exterior consciousness may deny the perception of the psychic, and this happens all the time. The perception of the psychic, it knows that the divine is in charge of everything, and I live in a divine universe, nothing can ever go wrong. But the exterior consciousness is almost looking for things to worry about, to doubt, to troubleshoot so that I may find my way to security, etc. But the psychic has the true knowledge, an intuitive, instinctive knowledge. It says, I know. I cannot give reasons, but I know. For its knowledge is not mental, based on experience or proved true. It does not believe after proofs given. Faith is the movement of the soul whose knowledge is spontaneous and direct. Even if the whole world denies and brings forward 1,000 proofs to the contrary, still it knows by an inner knowledge, a direct perception that can stand against everything, a perception by identity. Once I had read in some writing of the mother where she said that even if the whole world tells me I am not who I'm claiming to be, it won't matter because I know who I am. That's the kind of faith she had in the divine presence that she embodied. And that faith comes straight from the psychic. For us, we can have faith, but somebody says something, somebody else says something else, and immediately our faith starts. Am I really being sensible in having so much faith? Maybe I should do something to secure myself a little more. The knowledge of the psychic is something which is concrete and tangible, a solid mass. You can also bring it into your mental, your vital, and your physical, and then you have an integral faith, a faith which can really move mountains. But nothing in the being must come and say, it's not like that, or ask for a test. By the least half belief, you spoil matters. How can the Supreme manifest if faith is not integral and immovable? Faith in itself is always unshakable. That is the very nature. For otherwise, it is not faith at all. It's just a conditioned belief. But if it's faith, it is unshakable. Next. Every moment, all the unforeseen, the unexpected, the unknown is before us. At each moment, the universe creates itself anew in its entirety, and in every one of its parts. If we had a truly living faith, an absolute certitude of the almighty power of the divine, His manifestation could be so evident that the whole earth would be transformed by it. But we are enslaved to everything that is around us and has gone before us. We are so influenced by the whole totality of manifested things that our faith is so weak that we are yet unable to serve as intermediaries of the great miracle of transfiguration. Now, Mother said something very, very big here. She's saying that we want security. And all our lives, we live in a way to make ourselves secure. We have this much bank balance, I'm secure. If I've done this, then my health is secure. If I've done that, my relationships are secure. But she's telling us that every moment, all the unforeseen and unexpected is before us. I've struggled my whole life to create a bank balance to give me security. Tomorrow markets crash heavily, all my security can go down the drain. I have worked so hard to give myself a healthy condition. Tomorrow anything can happen and that can go for a toss. I have invested so much of my security in a relationship. Tomorrow, that same relationship can turn its back on me. So everything that we call strongholds of our security are really moving sandcastles on a beach. So that's why we live so insecurely, because whatever we are investing security into doesn't really give us the dividends of security. Our real security is in the divine presence within us. Our real security is in knowing that whatever happens, my bank balance crashes, my relationship goes for a toss, my health condition changes, so long as I have this presence inside me, I'm going to be good. And that's why Mother says that fear is such a shrinking on ourselves, because it's not really believing in the presence that we are. And somewhere, I couldn't find that writing today, but Mother has so beautifully said that what are you afraid of? What's the worst that will happen to you? You'll die. No. But that's also not so bad. You're only going to come to me. So the worst case scenario is that you'll die, and that's your ultimate fear, and that's also nothing to really fear. Then why are we living all our life with so much fear? Why are we basing our faith on the fact that I'll pray to Mother, she'll keep my word, then I'm fine? But why not make a leap of faith that whatever she does, even if she doesn't answer my prayer, I'm still going to be fine, because she'll hold me through it. Whatever I have to go through, I mean, all our prayer is to safeguard ourselves from pain, right? But we can't do that. Pain, the way when evolution reaches a point where pain is not necessary, sure, we can have a pain free existence. But right now, we are so steeped in ignorance that now and then pain will come. But instead of battling to the pain and praying, Mother, take away the pain, a more conscious prayer will be, let me grow through this pain. Let this pain serve whatever purpose it has to, and let me go through it with as little fear and lack of faith as possible. Because really, she's saying it at every moment, all the unforeseen and unexpected is before us. What can we really guarantee for ourselves? So if we are all the time overthinking and thinking, okay, if this condition I fulfill, I'm safe. Then that condition I'll fulfill, but I'm never going to feel safe. A more sensible thing is to find security in the knowing that Mother is within me. Whatever I go through, she's going to take care of me. And as she says, what's the worst that will happen? I'll die. No, that's also not so bad. I'll only go to her. She'll take me through the process. Okay, next. A pure faith is something all-powerful and irresistible. If one were to have an absolutely pure faith, untainted by all these things, a true faith, let's say the true faith, well, nothing would be impossible. Look at what she's saying. If we had a true faith, nothing would be impossible. One could be transformed overnight. One could bring down the supermind in a moment. One could do anything if one had faith. But it must be a pure faith. It should not be mixed with any personal reactions or personal will. A pure faith is something all-powerful and irresistible. One doesn't often find a faith that is all-powerful and irresistible, and this shows that it is not quite pure. The question should be put like this. Each one of us has faith, for example, a faith in something, say a faith in the divine presence within us. If our faith were pure, we would at once be aware of this presence within us. This example is very easy to understand. You have faith, it is there, but you don't have the experience. Why? Because the faith is not pure. If the faith were quite pure, immediately things would be done. This is a marvelous thing she's saying. She's saying that if you have faith, you have miracles at your fingertips. And she gives us an example. For example, you have the divine presence inside you, but you don't have a complete faith in it. And so you don't experience it. But if you had a pure 100% faith that I have the divine within me, you would experience it instantly. Just like Sri Aurobindo says, if you had faith down to the cellular level that you can walk on water, you would. If your faith were pure, we would at once be aware of this divine presence within us. So when you become aware that the thing is not realized at once, you begin to look, but why isn't it realized? What is there in my faith? And if you go on looking with the same sincerity, you will find that there are many little things in it. So many little things, not big as this, which are repulsive, little things. So many times a little conceit comes in and then a desire, not a very violent one. It doesn't show itself very much. The importance it gives you, the power it will give you, and the satisfaction it will give you. Okay, so all these things, this conceit, desire, they sort of take away our focus from faith and they weaken our faith. But she says if you had 100% faith, you'd be transformed in an instant. But of course, to get that 100% faith itself is a tapasya. Next. Face suffering with courage and faith in the grace. Quite naturally, we ask ourselves what the secret is towards which pain leads us. For a superficial and imperfect understanding, one could believe that it is pain which the soul is seeking. Nothing of the kind. The very nature of the soul is divine delight, constant, unvarying, unconditional, ecstatic. But it is true that if one can face suffering with courage, endurance, and unshakable faith in the divine grace, if one can, instead of shunning suffering when it comes, enter into it with this will, this aspiration to go through it and find the luminous truth, the unvarying delight which is at the core of all things, the door of pain is often more direct, more immediate than that of satisfaction or contentment. That's what we discussed. The key to going through suffering is to suffer consciously, to look for growth in the pain rather than just wishing the pain away. Next, a cure for fear. If you have faith and are consecrated to the divine, there is a very simple way. It is to say, let your will be done. We did this here last time also. Nothing can frighten me because it is you who are guiding my life. I belong to you and you are guiding my life. That acts immediately. Of all the means, this is the most effective. Indeed, it is. That is, one must be truly consecrated to the divine. If one has that, it acts immediately. All fear vanishes immediately like a dream, and the being with the bad influence also disappears like a dream along with the fear. You should see it running away at full speed. Voila. So these words of the mother, let your will be done. Nothing can frighten me because it is you who are guiding my life. I belong to you and you are guiding my life. Once again, let your will be done. Nothing can frighten me because it is you who are guiding my life. I belong to you and you are guiding my life. Next. Faith that what happens is always for the best. We may, for the moment, not consider it as the best. We've always said whatever happens for the best. Your mother saying, we may, for the moment, not consider it as the best because we are ignorant and also blind, because we do not see the consequences of things and what will happen later. But we must keep the faith that if it is like that, if we rely on the divine, if we give him full charge of ourselves, if we let him decide everything for us, well, we must know that it is always the best for us which happens. This is an absolute fact. So she's saying, given your current state of ignorance, it's not very correct to say the best will happen to you. But if you keep your faith, if you rely on the divine, if you give him full charge, if we let him decide everything for us, well, we must know that it is always the best for us which happens. This is an absolute fact. To the extent to which you surrender, the best happens to you. This may not be in conformity with what you would like, your preference or desire, because these things are blind. It is the best from the spiritual point of view, the best for your progress, your development, your spiritual growth, your true life. It is always like that. And you must keep this faith because faith is an expression of a trust in the divine and the full self-giving you make to the divine. And when you make it, it is something absolutely marvelous. That's a fact. These are not just words you understand, it's a fact. When you look back, all kinds of things which you do not understand when they happen to you realize is just the thing which was necessary in order to compel you to make the needed progress. Always, without exception. It is our blindness that prevents us from seeing it. Okay, so she's saying that however dark a moment is, if you keep your faith in the divine, then that will ensure that the very best will happen to you. And this best may not be what you think should be the best, but it will be best for your growth and your evolution. And that is something we must remember always, that very often we lose faith because we feel, I prayed, I surrendered, I did everything, and it didn't go the way I wanted it to go. But it won't go always the way you want it to go. It will go the way that mother wills it best for you. And that is the true test of our surrender. Next, when you come to the yoga, you must be ready to have all your mental buildings and your vital scaffolding shattered to pieces. All your ideas about this is good, this is bad, this is what should happen to me for my good, that should not happen to me, all that must be shattered to pieces. You must be prepared to be suspended in the air with nothing to support you except your faith. You will have to forget your past self and its clingings altogether, to pluck it out of your consciousness and be born anew, free from every kind of bondage. Think not of what you were, but of what you aspire to be. Be altogether in what you want to realize. Turn from your dead past and look straight towards the future. Your religion, country, family lie there. It is the divine. Think not of what you were, but of what you aspire to be. So if I've been a person who's always lived with a lot of fear and anxiety, don't think of that. Always focus on what you aspire to be, full of faith, courage, dauntless. Turn from your dead past and look straight towards the future. Your religion, country, family lie there. It is the divine. Release the screen share. So the question is that we hear all this, but what is our practice while living it? How much of our day is really with a background of what Mother calls luminous faith? And how much of our day is spent with a kind of lacklusterness, a dread, a nameless gloominess, a fear, an anxiety? A lot of our day is spent in the latter, right? For many of us, I'm not making blanket statements, but for many of us. Why is that so? Because that fear, that dread, that gloominess is so strongly programmed into our vital, into our mental, into our subconscious, that it's important to remember that that view that is constantly coming into our mindscape is not circumstantial. It's not because life is like that. It's only because of our conditioning. Uh, Somehow we get conditioned into thinking that my life only sucks. If my life sucks, of course, I'm going to be gloomy, full of dread, full of whatever. And unless that changes, I can't change. But it's not about what life is. I don't know how to emphasize this enough. Your mind state is never really about your life. It's about the conditioning in your mental, vital, physical, subconscious, all these parts of your being, whatever conditioning they have from the past, that conditioning just keeps getting regurgitated like a software program playing itself out again and again. And unless we break the matrix of that software program, it will just go on and on. And really, our life outside is a reflection of this consciousness that we live with. If we are waiting for our life outside to change our mind state, it's never going to happen. But if we really draw on the divine presence within us to change our mind state, then our life outside has a chance of changing. Am I clear? Do you have any questions about this so far? Okay, so if you're clear about it, we can go ahead. So the point is...
Just one question.
Yes, Purvi?
If our mind state has changed, would the circumstances still be the same or would they also change?
See, Purvi, if your mind state really changes, it can't, your whole perception of the circumstance will change. And by, over a period of time, the circumstance will last till it's needed for your growth. And finally, it may go away. But the point is, if your mind state changes, the perception of the circumstance will 100% change. And if that changes, the circumstance can't not change. Am I clear, Purvi?
Right. Thank you.
So the point is that the moment that recording starts of your mental vital, that fear starts, that anxiety, I mean, somehow humanity has reached such a state that many of us have very little resilience. The smallest thing that threatens to go wrong, and we go into so much panic, so much fear, as if the world has come crashing down. And that's not because of circumstances, that's just because we've somehow given fear such a strong place in our consciousness that it keeps playing itself out again and again and again. So the moment that gloominess, that fear, that whatever comes up, we have to draw on faith inside us. Now, we can't fight the mind with the mind. It won't work. I mean, yeah, it helps. Patanjali says that if a klishta vritti, a pain-giving vritti arises, raise an klishta, an opposite vritti to it, it's helpful. But beyond the point, if you have to conquer the mind, you have to conquer it through a faculty bigger than the mind, and that's your psychic being. That's the mother's presence inside us. So whenever you give in to fear, nothing makes the psychic recede like fear does. You cannot feel fearful and feel the mother's presence at the same time. It's difficult because one vibration that really makes your psychic being withdraw and recede is fear. So those of us who say, oh, I try so hard, I read so much, I attend so much, but I don't feel anything. But the point is, if you're living with a constant mind state of gloominess and fear and whatever, you may have a very well developed psychic being, but it can't be felt till you really remove the clouds of that gloominess and fear and whatever else. And it's not really impossible. When you're on the grip of that mind state, you'll feel it's impossible. This is my lot. All this mother and all sounds good, but I don't think I can connect and I don't think I can get out of this fear. You may not articulate this, but that's generally the mind state when you're caught into it. But that's not true. Don't buy into it. Uh, most of us are here because somewhere we felt something for the mother. We aren't just here to listen to pretty words. We are here because somewhere we have the mother's call. And if that is so, it's not possible that even one of us here doesn't have access to her. We all have access to her. She has said, if you can't feel me, call my name even mechanically. Even that mechanical repetition will pave a way for me to somehow come in. But call to her, reach out to her, do what you can. Move heaven and earth, but don't stay in that mind state of dread, fear, anxiety, inadequacy, all that goes with a contradiction to the faith that I am the divine presence and I have the mother inside me. And at every moment I am looked after, and only the best will happen to me if I align myself with her. It's like we've discussed neuroplasticity before. They have found that there are certain connections in your nervous system. There's one connection for every emotion you feel. And the more strongly you feel that emotion, the more that connection gets hardwired into your nervous system. But if you break that pattern, if that fear comes and that circuit in your nervous system starts getting reinforced, at that moment you start carving another pathway for faith. Then over a period of time, this circuitry for fear gets weaker and weaker, and the circuitry for faith gets more and more enhanced. Just give me a moment. We may have seen this video, but I want to do something specific to faith. So please watch it again if you've seen it. I don't know how many of you've seen it, but watch it carefully.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well travelled, These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep travelling that road, our brains begin to.
So just think of the white path as the pathway of fear and anxiety, and think of the yellow path as the pathway of faith. Just keep this picture very vividly etched in your mind.
To use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming.
So you see, over a period of time, that white pathway of fear is gone and the yellow pathway of faith is what exists.
New connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
So really, yoga is about neuroplasticity. How much effort are you going to make to reprogram that fear in your nervous system into faith? So every time that thought of fear comes, you somehow delve into yourself. You remind yourself that fear is the only thing you need to fear is fear itself, because everything else, the scenarios it creates in your mind, they are not going to happen. But the most damaging thing about the whole thing is the fear itself. Next screen share.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yeah.
Ma'am, why do we pick up a bad habit in the first place? Is it because we have choice? It's a choice. We can choose a good or bad habit. We can choose
See,
any
if you're
habit.
talking about fear as a habit, well, we've been through so many lifetimes where terrestrially we may have gone through terrible experiences. Maybe in animal births we've been killed, whatever. So there is a reason fear was programmed into our consciousness, and at one point it had its utility. It gave us self-preservation, it gave us all that. But an evil is nothing but a good that has outlived its time, as Sri Aurobindo says. Fear was good maybe at some point in evolution. Now there's no place for fear. If we want to evolve further, we have to get rid of that bad habit of fear, and same applies for any other habit. Maybe at some point it served a purpose. But as you evolve and grow, the habits which served a purpose in the past have to be shed.
Ma'am, but something more basic like, let's say, overeating. We know it's harming our body, but we still continue to do that. I mean, something like that.
So that also maybe I'm taking it to one extreme. Maybe in a past life, there was a great experience of hunger, not for everyone. A lot of overeating is emotional overeating, but that could be the past. Or you overeat because you have the false idea that if you eat, you'll feel better. You end up feeling only worse. Normally, but there's just a thought that when I eat, the emotion will go away, but it never goes away. And it's not even articulated in your mind that if I eat the emotion, but you just feel, I don't know what to do, so I'll eat and I'll feel good. But it never happens like that. So it's ignorance also from which bad habits come. It's not a lack of understanding of yourself from which the bad habits come. So somebody has said, when I suffer from pain or grief or mischance, I say, so my old playfellow, thou hast taken to bullying me. And I sit down to possess the pleasure of the pain, the joy of grief, the good fortune of mischance. Then he sees he's found out and takes his ghosts and bugbears away from me. I'm sorry, I started by saying somebody has said this, but this is Sri Aurobindo's words. The person has typed that somebody is Sri Aurobindo himself. When I suffer from pain or grief or mischance, I say, so my old playfellow, thou hast taken again to balloon me, and I sit down to possess the pleasure of pain and the joy of grief. The good fortune of mischance, then he sees he's found out and takes the ghosts and bugbears away from me. This is beautiful, but maybe difficult for most of us to find joy in the grief yet. Of course, it's a truth. If Gurudev has said it, it has to be a truth. But maybe the joy and the grief will come later. Right now, at least when the fear comes, if I can immediately turn to faith, if I can immediately remember mother, if I can immediately remember that she's there, she'll never let me down. She'll protect me in ways I can't imagine, and somehow dissolve fear in that knowing. Next screen share.
Anita, I have a question.
Yeah.
If someone is aware that they have a bad habit, but they don't want to drop it, then what does one do? I mean, how does it go? They are aware, they are very, very aware, but they don't.
Jasmine, you can't do anything to anyone but yourself. So only worry about changing yourself and leave others to mother to change in her own time. You worry about the fact that if that habit of the person is creating a reaction in you, then somehow invokes mother's help to change that reaction into peace. And pray for the person. That's the maximum you can do. Beyond that, it's their journey with the mother. She'll take care of them in her own time.
Thank you.
Next.
I also have a question.
Yes.
So you've been talking about fear here, right? But this is also true of any other emotion, like not fear, but even maybe pain or a sense of unhappiness.
Yeah.
So are you? Is what you were saying synonymous with that, or is it restricted to fear?
No. Any pain at the end of the day has some vibration of a fear to it. What I'm saying is even sadness is some form of fear. If you analyze sadness deeply, it's a fear that, oh, I'll always be this lonely, abandoned thing. Things will never change. There's a sense of defeat and sadness. And any defeat also has, in a very subtle way, a vibration of fear to it. So, yes, this applies to any negativity because largely most forms of, or I don't know, there could be an exception. I haven't thought of it so much, but right now what's coming to my mind is every negativity at its root will have some vibration of fear.
Okay, let me think about that, because I find fear very different from the others.
No, would you say feeling defeated is also a form of fear?
No.
I feel it is a form of fear.
Okay.
Because feeling defeated has a vibration of pessimism, negativity.
Yeah, it's a negative emotion, but it's not fear.
It is fear. It is a resignation that things will never change and I'll be doomed to this forever.
No, but then it's in the moment that you feel that.
Okay, Brahma, we are playing with words. Whatever the negativity, if you feel negative at that moment, you've lost faith.
Okay.
And the solution to any negative emotion is bringing back that faith.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Yeah.
So whatever, I mean, that's playing with words, but any negative emotion, the solution is always faith. You can't feel a negative emotion without losing faith in that moment.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. Next. A love of self-confidence and of faith in the divine is the most shattering strength possible. It disrupts the enemy's front, spreads havoc in his ranks, and carries you triumphantly onwards. So whenever something threatens you, Mother says a laugh of self-confidence and faith in the divine is the most shattering. It shatters your enemy's strength possible. It disrupts the enemy's front, spreads havoc in his ranks, and carries you triumphantly onwards. Next. This is from Synthesis of Yoga, the power of the divine universal Shakti, which is behind our aspiration, is illimitable. Universal Shakti, Adi Shakti, the Divine Mother. The power of the divine universal Shakti, which is behind our aspiration, is illimitable. So we feel we aspire, but it's really the Adi Shakti inside us which aspires in us. And when it is rightly called upon, it cannot fail to pour itself into us and to remove whatever incapacity and obstacle, now or later, for the times and duration of our struggle, while they depend at first instrumentally and in part on the strength of our faith and our endeavor, are yet eventually in the hands of the wisely determining secret spirit alone, the master of yoga, the Ishvara. So, and when it is rightly called upon, it cannot fail to pour itself into us and to remove whatever incapacity and obstacle. So if we have a way of being and we feel we are doomed to it forever, that's not true. The power of this divine Shakti inside us is illimitable. If we truly aspire and call, it can change anything inside us. For the times and durations of our struggles, while they depend at first instrumentally and in part on the strength of our faith and our endeavor, are yet eventually in the hands of the wisely determining secret spirit alone, the master of yoga, the Ishvara. Next. And behind her, behind the Adi Shakti, is the Ishvara, and faith in him is most central thing in the Shraddha of the integral yoga. This faith we must have and develop to perfection, that all things are the workings under the universal conditions of a supreme self-knowledge and wisdom, and that nothing done in us or around us is in vain or without its appointed place and just significance, that all things are possible when the Ishwar, as a supreme self and spirit, takes up the action, and that all that has been done before and all that he will do hereafter was and will be part of his infallible and foreseeing guidance and intended towards the fruition of our yoga and the perfection of our life work. So he's saying that faith in Ishwar is the most central thing in integral yoga. This faith we must have and develop. See, we have it in flashes, but there is a personal effort of developing that faith. The moment we fall into a gloomy, dark moment, we have to turn inside us, use every sinew of consciousness to bring back that luminous faith. And very often Mother uses this beautiful word, luminous faith, shining faith, because the moment it arises, it brightens us. It removes all the darkness and gloominess from us. So this faith is central to integral yoga. And nothing done. And what is this faith? That all things are the workings under the universal conditions, universal, not just limited to us. Whatever Ishwar is doing, he's doing for the greater common good. He's doing it to carry the whole evolution forward of a supreme self-knowledge and wisdom, and that nothing done in us or around us is in vain or without its appointed place and just significance. That all things are possible when the Ishwar, as our supreme self and spirit, takes up the action. So I was with a friend yesterday who was sharing with me about another friend whose husband, after maybe 20 years of marriage, 2 kids, very happy, suddenly has left the lady for another lady. And the lady who's been deserted was saying, what a waste of 20 years. And I was so proud of my friend. I mean, she's not like heavily into the path, but she has a connection inside. She turned around and told her, why do you call it a waste of 20 years? It was your growth curve, right? How can you say you haven't grown through all the experiences you had in your marriage, the good times, the bad times, the split? So how can you call it a waste? We are so quick in calling it everything a waste. When things turn sour, we say, what a waste. But it's not a waste. You grew through the process, so how can it be a waste? So all things are possible when the Ishwar, as a supreme self and spirit, takes up the action, and that all that has been done before and all that he will do hereafter was and will be part of his infallible and foreseeing guidance, intended towards the fruition of our yoga and our perfection and our life work. This faith will be more and more justified as the higher knowledge opens. We shall begin to see the great and small significances that escaped our limited mentality, and faith will pass into knowledge. Then we shall see beyond the possibility of doubt that all happens within the working of the one will, and that will has also wisdom because it develops always the true workings in life of the self and nature. The highest state of ascent, the Shraddha of the being, will be when we feel the presence of the Ishwar and feel all our existence and consciousness and thought and will and action in His hand, and consent in all things with every part of ourself and nature to the direct and imminent and occupying will of the Spirit. And that highest perfection of the Shraddha will also be the opportunity and perfect foundation of a divine strength. It will base, when complete, the development and manifestation and the works of the luminous supramental Shakti. So this is very important. The highest state of the ascent, our saying yes in yoga. The Shraddha of the being will be when we feel the presence of the Ishwar and feel all our existence and consciousness and thought and will and action in His hand, and consent in all things and with every part of ourselves and nature to the direct and imminent and occupying will of the Spirit. That is when we can really say, let your will be done. I don't have a will. My will is your will. You do what you like, and I have no doubt it's going to be for my best. And that highest perfection of the Shraddha will also be the opportunity and perfect foundation of a divine strength. That faith becomes our strength. It will base, when complete, the development and manifestation and the works of the luminous supramental Shakti. The Mother works best in us when our Adhar is full of this luminous faith. So next, I think we go to Savitri. This is a beautiful passage, one of my favorites. I've actually tried to learn it up also because it's so beautiful. It's like something you like to have as your constant companion when you don't have access to the book also. A priestess of immaculate ecstasies. This is about the mother. She's a priestess. Normally, a priestess presides over rituals. She presides over the pure ecstasies of our being, the ecstasies that we feel. She's the priestess of it. A priestess of immaculate ecstasies, inspired and ruled from truth's revealing vault. These rituals of ecstasies that she unleashes in us come from truth's revealing vault. Moves in some prophet cavern of the gods, a heart of silence in the hands of joy, inhabited with rich creative beats, a body like a parable. Parable is a story of dawn. So this is describing the mother. The mother's heart is a heart of silence in the hands of joy. Joys are organs of action. She was never one who was just steeped in silences. She was all about manifesting. She's the Shakti who manifests Shiva. So the heart of silence is the Shiva aspect, and she is the hands of joy that manifests that heart of silence. A heart of silence in the hands of joy, inhabited with rich creative beats. This is her human heart. It's inhabiting with its rich creative beats her body, the mother's body, which was like a story of dawn, a new beginning, a new consciousness. So a heart of silence in the hands of joy, inhabited with rich creative beats, body like a parable of dawn, that seemed a niche, a hiding place for veiled divinity, or a golden temple door to things beyond. For us, Mother is that golden temple door to things beyond. We start with her image, but her image leads us to temples of peace and joy and whatever else we find inside us. That seemed like a niche for veiled divinity or a golden temple door to things beyond. Immortal rhythms swayed in her time-born steps. She was born in earth time, she lived in earth time, but immortal rhythms swayed in every step she took. There was not even a look that escaped her eyes that didn't benefit the earth. Every breath of hers, she was pouring grace and divinity on humankind and on earth. Immortal rhythms swayed in her time-born steps. Her look, her smile, awoke celestial sense even in earth stuff. We are the earth stuff. One look into her eyes, one smile in a picture of hers, and suddenly a celestial smile awakens. Her look, her smile awoke celestial sense even in earth stuff, and their intense delight poured a supernal beauty on men's lives. A wide self-giving was her native act. It was natural to her to give herself. She gave literally everything she had. We know that when the ashram was going through bad financial times, whatever she had inherited in terms of jewelry and whatever, she one by one sold off. Nothing she kept for herself. Whatever was hers, she gave for humanity. A wide self-giving was her native act. A magnanimity as of sea or sky, enveloped with its greatness all that came, and gave a sense as of a greatened world. Her kindly care was a sweet, temperate sun, A tropical sun is very harsh. It's very like tropics, between the tropics, Tropic of Capricorn and Cancer. The sun is glaring, intense. Temperate are regions beyond the tropics. There the sun is very gentle. So her kindly care was a sweet, temperate sun, just enough to warm us without burning us. Her high passion, a blue heaven's equipoise. Normally, passion is tumultuous, but her passion was full of equanimity. Her high passion, a blue heaven's equipoise. This is beautiful, the next lines. As might a soul fly like a hunted bird, escaping with tired wings from a world of storms, on a quiet reach like a remembered rest in a haven of safety and splendid, soft repose. So all of us are compared to a hunted bird. God knows what's hunting us. But let's say our imaginary fears, our dreads, our gloominess is hunting us all the time. All the conditionings of our past, of our mental vital is hunting us all the time, not allowing us to rest, not allowing us to be at ease, that agitation that constantly wants to check the next WhatsApp message as if we are going to get that one message that will suddenly deliver us. Where is the need to look at our phones so often? It's because we are in a hunted state all the time. Where is the need to keep popping food in our mouth? Because we are in that hunted state all the time. So here Sri Aurobindo is saying that we are hunted by our fears and our negativities all the time. But when we find mother inside us, when we find faith in us inside us, metaphorically, it's like that bird which is tired of flying and being hunted, at last feels I'm not hunted. I'm in a safe space. I can rest my tired wings. I can be safe. So when we come to the mother, we get this feeling of a bird which has been hunted, which is just flying and flying because it feels it'll be shot down if it doesn't keep doing. But when we find mother and this faith inside us, we can rest our tired wings and we can feel safe and we can just give her the charge and say, Mother, you do, you will do, you are doing. I don't need to do anything anymore to keep myself safe. As might a soul fly like a hunted bird, escaping with tired wings from a world of storms, and a quiet reach like a remembered rest in a haven of safety and splendid, soft repose. One could drink life back in streams of honey fire, recover the lost habit of happiness, feel her bright nature's glorious ambience, and bring joy in her warmth and colors rule, a deep of compassion, a hushed sanctuary, her inward help unbarred, a gate in heaven. Love in her was wider than the universe. Beautiful. One could drink life back in streams of honey fire, sweet fire, sweetness and passion and enthusiasm to live. That's what we get back when we find mother. Many of us, in fact, I hear this from a lot of some women at least regarding their husbands who don't have faith, that when they reach these midlife crises, they often say, what do we have to live for? Because they've tried everything in life, all the illusions of life, and it's not enough. But that's what we find. When we find the mother, we suddenly feel young again. We feel passionate to live. We want to experience. We want to go forward. So it's like we drink life back in streams of honey fire, recover the lost habit of happiness because we've gotten into the habit of being unhappy. But when we find the mother, we recover the habit of happiness. Feel her bright nature's glorious ambience and bring joy in her warmth and colors rule, a deep of compassion, a hushed sanctuary, her inward help, unbarred a gate in heaven. Love in her was wider than the universe. The whole world could take refuge in her single heart. Next, so this is a beautiful image of the mother. I'll keep it as I read out this passage of Savitri. And y'all can keep your eyes closed, see her within, or keep your eyes on this image. A priestess of immaculate ecstasies, inspired and ruled from truth's revealing bolt, moves in some prophet cavern of the gods, a heart of silence in the hands of joy, inhabited with rich creative beats, a body like a parable of dawn that seemed a niche for veiled divinity or golden temple door to things beyond. Immortal rhythms swayed in her time-worn steps. Her look, her smile, awoke celestial sense even in earth's stuff, and their intense delight poured a supernal beauty on men's life. Her wide self-giving was her native act, a magnanimity as of sea or sky, enveloped with its greatness all that came, and gave a sense of a greatened world. Her kindly care was a sweet, temperate sun, her high passion, the blue heavens equipoise, as might a soul fly like a hunted bird, escaping with tired wings from a world of storms, and a quiet reach like a remembered breast in a haven of safety, and splendid, soft repose. One could drink life back in streams of honey fire, recover the lost habit of happiness, feel her bright nature's glorious ambience, and bring joy in her warmth and colors rule, a deep of compassion, a hushed sanctuary, her inward help unbarred a gate in heaven. Love in her was wider than the universe. The whole world could take refuge in her single heart. So if there are no more questions, we'll conclude with a concentrated summary of our session. Are there any questions? Leave the screen share. Any questions? All right, then let's keep mother's image on, the last image. In today's class, we explored what would be a natural consequence to our class last time. Last time, our class was on fear. This time, it would naturally be about faith, because fear is nothing but the absence of faith. When we feel fearful or anxious or negative, in that moment, we obviously have lost touch with faith. Just the way in a room, darkness and light cannot exist together, fear and faith cannot exist together in us in the same moment. So whenever we feel negative, it's good to be sincere to tell ourselves that in that moment, I have lost my faith, and I simply have to delve into myself to recover that faith, because that faith is always there inside me, deep in my psychic being. The mother's presence inside me, the very fabric of it is faith. Faith that I'm part of a divine whole. Faith that at every moment there is perfect order in the apparent chaos of the cosmos. Faith that once I have loved the mother and called to her, she will never let me down. That with her protection, I can go into the mouth of death, as she says, and nobody can touch one hair on my head. I can be in the most adverse of circumstances, but if I go into them with a shining, bright, happy faith, the best will come out of those circumstances. I'll make the necessary growth I need to by growing through them, and I'll come out of them unscathed and in a much better place. So for most of us, we live with almost a constant mind state of dread, sadness, hurt, fear, dread. And that's not because of life and circumstances. Let's be very clear that our thinking that life causes me this pain is ignorance. My pain is coming from the conditioning in my mental, in my vital, in my subconscious, which is constantly being regurgitated and playing out as records. So once I recognize this, I must remember the phenomena of neuroplasticity. The fact that every time I feel a negative emotion and I feed it, it gets a more deeper blueprint in my nervous system, and it comes more often and with greater frequency. But every time a thought of fear comes, like we saw, the white pathway would be the thought of fear, and we start creating a pathway of faith, the yellow pathway. Over a period of time, the white pathway of fear and negativity goes away, and the very blueprint in our nervous system changes to faith. Then quite effortlessly, our thoughts and emotions are bright and luminous with faith. So that is our personal effort required to constantly feed faith rather than fear. And when we turn to the mother and remember her in the darkest of moments, this becomes so very possible for us. That in fact, Sri Aurobindo gives us a beautiful metaphor in Savitri. Most of us are feeling hunted by our negativity all the time. And so the restless compulsion to constantly check WhatsApp messages, eat food, overeat, do things, it's all because of feeling hunted. But when we really give ourselves to the mother's presence inside us, we feel like that bird who's not feeling hunted anymore, and it can just rest its tired wings. So those words from Savitri. As might a soul fly like a hunted bird, escaping with tired wings from a world of storms, and a quiet reach like a remembered rest in a haven of safety and splendid soft repose. One could drink life back in streams of honey fire, recover the lost habit of happiness, feel her bright nature's glorious ambience, and green joy in her warmth and colors rule. Let's just be quiet for a moment. Let's put an intention into the universe to make this huge personal effort to fight for our faith, to come back to it again and again, no matter how strong our past conditioning is. And we just have to look at Mother sometimes to find the faith we've lost again. So that's all for today. Vijay, you can release the screen share. See you all next Saturday.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you, and most welcome. Most welcome. Most welcome. Most welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome. Thank you, Vijay.
Thank you, Vijay. Yes.